way back when I were a young lad. It was 1993. I remember the day now. I went into the office at Rare, and Tim Stamper had given me this piece of equipment, and he says, Kev, we're going to make video game graphics like this. And I looked at it and I said, what? How can we make video game graphics like that? We've got a Super Nintendo, not a Cray. A Cray, by the way, was a very, very powerful computer in the 80s. But this was called a silicon graphics machine. And the silicon graphics machine was so cool. That's the machine that they used to make all of the graphics for films like Terminator 2, The Abyss, and Jurassic Park. So we had these silicon graphics machines. And all I wanted to do was make a fighting game because me, being a ninja, and being a massive Bruce Lee fan at the age of, I must have been about 16 then. Now, I tell a lie, it was 1993. So it would have been about, I don't know, 22, something like that. Tim gave me these machines and he gave me this software and he says, just do something with that. And so I wanted to make a fighting character because it's the first game I really wanted to make when I was at Rare, and I still hadn't had my chance to make one really. So I decided to start building 3D characters, ninjas, kung fu masters, robots, and things like that for a fighting game. I started making these video game characters and I was learning how to use the software. I'd never used the software before. I didn't know a thing about 3D graphics. So what I started doing was building ninjas, things like that. And then we got this call because we were very close to Nintendo at the time. We got a call from Nintendo saying that they were coming over to visit the company, as they did fairly regularly. We decided to put a demo together of the stuff that we were working on for this fighting game because as soon as Tim saw that the fighting characters were actually looking quite good, Tim got hold of a machine himself and the software, and he started building backgrounds for my characters to roam around on. I didn't do much roaming around. They just bobbed up and down like a Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat bouncy up and downy pose facing each other, because that's as far as I'd got really with the software. But I did a boxer, which was now known as TJ Combo, and I did a female character with a big staff called Wanda, who eventually evolved into Orchid. Okay? Tim said, look, Kev, Nintendo are coming over and they're coming to take a look at the stuff that we've done. So we put a demo together. And this demo is pretty important because basically Nintendo aren't happy about the new game that's coming out on the Sega Mega Drive system, which is the Aladdin Disney movie game port. Okay? And it looked fantastic. It really did. It had got all of these professional Disney animators creating all of the frames of animation, and it just looked like a cartoon. It looked like a Disney cartoon on the Sega Mega Drive, or Genesis, as you call it in the US. So Nintendo were quite interested to hear about the things that we were doing, and so they wanted to see what we were doing and come over and visit us and take a look. So we put a demo together, and as soon as they saw that, they were blown away because it wasn't like anything that anyone had ever seen before. Even me, I hadn't seen anything like that before, and I didn't believe that it was going to look great. But we tried it out, and after Tim convinced me to have a mess around with the machine and start building stuff, we managed to get a demo together, and we rendered it out at, I think, 240 by 240 by 3. I can't remember the resolution was now. 340, 280, I think, something like that. It was half NTSC size anyway, so it was quite low resolution. And we got a character bobbing up and down on this background, and it looked really solid because all of the shadows and the lighting and the materials on those characters made them look extremely solid. Okay? So Nintendo said, yep, that's good. We like that. We'll be back. We'll be back in touch with something because we've got plans for this kind of technology. So they went home. Tim took them out for a meal, and they came into me and saw me just before they went out for the meal. And he said, Kev, they liked it. And of course they liked it because they did. It looked pretty good. And he said, Kev, tomorrow, go home, come back tomorrow. There's going to be some information about a game that they'd like us to do using this new technology. So I went home, came back the next day. And before the end of the morning, I think I'd got a fax or a set of faxes from Nintendo, which I've actually still got in my house. It's a big wad of faxes. And it got all these amazing pictures of Donkey Kong, Donkey Kong Jr., and a few others, all drawn by Shigeru Miyamoto from Nintendo. And it was Donkey Kong. And they said, look, this character hasn't seen the light of day for 10 years since he was in the arcade. So we'd like you to give Donkey Kong the CGI treatment and do exactly the same as you've done with those fighting characters. Now, I was a little bit miffed about this because I was really into doing this fighting game. I wanted to make the next Double Dragon or Street Fighter, but using rendered graphics. I went away and I said to Tim, how long's it got to take on this Donkey Kong character? He says, just do it. Just build it, Kev. Just make it look good. Do the same thing, because I was the only one that had any experience building the characters, because I had the stack of manuals on how to use the software which you're using at the time, which was called Power Animator. So I started building a character, but I didn't really think there was anything wrong with Shigeru Miyamoto's model, his design. Sorry, there was no model at that point. There was just a bunch of sketches, facts after facts after facts of these great Nintendo characters by Shigeru Miyamoto. I thought, well, what can I do to this? It still looks like an ape, and I was kind of afraid to take it too far away from the original design because, well, that's Donkey Kong, and if I don't make it look like Donkey Kong, it's not going to look like an ape anymore. So what do I do? It's going to look different because it's going to be rendered, and I didn't know whether they were expecting me to just reproduce that, but Tim said, just do it, Kev. Just make it look like that. But they said, no, we want to change it. We want to update it anyway. So Tim said, go ahead, do whatever changes you think you want to do to it. Now, a few years before then, I'd created some characters called the Battletoads. Battletoads was my answer to the Teenage Ninja Turtles, except we did it before the Teenage Ninja Turtles, whatever they're called. Terrapins, Tortoise, Tortai, Ninja Tortai. We did the Battletoads and we made their arms change into different shapes and things like that so that it looked a bit different, because we realized that there was a, can we say, rival set of amphibians or reptiles in a fighting game, very similar. So we did Battletoads. And when I drew Battletoads or any other character, I drew the eyes in a certain way. If you can all draw yourselves a McDonald's logo on a piece of paper now and make it look like an inflatable McDonald's logo, and then just draw a dot in each of the two golden arches, and then just shade the top right corners of the golden arches, and you've got Donkey Kong's eyes, and Battletoad's eyes, and Whizpig, you can't beat me, eyes, for any other character that I've ever drawn, Crunch, Crash, whatever you want to call him. If it's got pointy eyes, it was made by Kev Bayliss. And so I just stuck those onto the Donkey Kong body. I went down to the local zoo, took a few shots of not shots, physical shots. I didn't try and shoot him. I took my camera and took some pictures of the big, huge silverback gorilla that lived there. And he always looked very angry. And I'm not surprised, because he lived in a glass box, basically, with a bit outside. It's like, it made me feel very sad. And so I came back and I drew this scowling gorilla with Battletoad's eyes. Big chest, brown fur, pink hands, just like a real gorilla. Not. And then I stuck these eyes on it, and I stuck a little bit of a quiff. And the eyes looked like a banana, and the head looked like a coconut. And that's why I said you should be eating bananas and coconuts, because that's basically what DK is made of, with a lot of Battletoads DNA. Okay? So I built that character, and that's the way it looked. And then I know there's a lot of rumors about people that say, oh, Miyamoto didn't like it, Nintendo didn't like it. I never got any of that. I just got a fax back from Tim the next day. Well, actually, he received a fax, and he came down and says, yep, they love it. They love it, Kev. They just said, can you put a tie on it? Can you at least put a tie on so it looks like DK, and give it some kind of intelligence so it's not completely naked? Because if it's naked, it's not wearing anything. Woo, naked? You can't have naked apes running around in games. They've got to have clothes on, because it's got to show that they are civilized apes and they're playing a video game. So that's why we put the tie on, because of course, as everybody knows, an ape that wears a tie is an intelligent ape, okay? And so the tape, we decided to put the tie on there. And so we said it's on, like Donkey Kong, the tie. And that was that. I made that, and that's how he looks, and that's why he looks the way he does, or has looked for the last 25 years. So they were quite happy with that, and then we put the demo together, and then I wanted to really get back onto my Killer Instinct characters, which was known as Brute Force at the time. But then Greg Miles came to see me from the design team, and once they'd seen the amazing demo that we put together for them, Nintendo says, yep, we'll throw more machines and more money at this to make sure it gets done. You need all of this power to render all of the backgrounds and all of the characters up. So they started supplying us with more equipment, and we started taking on more artists so that we could build everything. And then Greg came to see me once the Donkey Kong team was established and says, we also need another character. We need a sidekick character for Donkey Kong. So I immediately assumed that he was thinking, oh, you mean Donkey Kong Jr., right? The little baby that's in a sort of romper suit. So I started to build something, but I just kind of cut a few corners and took the same head as Donkey Kong, but I drew the eyes in a very different way. I drew what I call the mono eye. And I don't know where I saw it, but growing up when I was a kid, I guess I saw some silly comics, and maybe the Battletoad's eyes, which ended up on Donkey Kong, were also something that I'd seen in a comic when I was about 8 years old. But I'm sure I saw the mono eye somewhere else too. And so I gave Diddy Kong the mono eye, and that's the eyes that you see on Diddy, which is that nice white base. It looks like a scuba mask with two little black dots in it. But I obviously needed to make him look intelligent too, and to make him look intelligent, I had to put some clothes on, but I couldn't give him a tie. I couldn't give him a tie. I had to give him some kind of different outfit. So I gave him something red to match up, and I always remembered some breakfast cereals when I was a kid in the UK, and they were called Cocoa Pops. Kellogg's Cocoa Pops. I think it was called something different in the US and probably something different in other countries too. But in the UK, they were called Cocoa Pops. And there was a little monkey that used to sit there and eat them, just like Tony the Tiger used to say, "They're great." I don't know whether he said, "Hoo, hoo, hoo, ha, ha, ha. I really like these Cocoa Pops." But he didn't say anything as far as I remember. Kellogg's Cocoa Pops. That was it. That was the jingle. I don't know how it went, but there was definitely a tune that went, Kellogg's Cocoa Pop. And so I put a hat on Diddy and a t-shirt, and I made him look very similar to the Cocoa Pops monk. But when we presented that to Nintendo, Nintendo said, well, this looks too different, way too different to Donkey Kong Jr. So, and also he's got a tail, something that Donkey Kong Jr. didn't really have. And as apes are apes and don't have tails, and monkeys are monkeys and do have tails, we'd rather he wasn't Donkey Kong Jr. And maybe there was a couple of concerns about Donkey Kong Jr. not long having an appearance in Mario Kart. So they decided, let's not use Donkey Kong Jr. and let's use this new character you've got here, and we'll call it something new. It's entirely up to you guys what you want to call it. And we decided to call it Diddy Kong. Because Diddy in the UK, when we say something's Diddy, it means it's little, it's tiny, it's Diddy, it's witty, it's teeny weeny. And that's what Diddy is. He's a Diddy version of Kong, or it's actually his nephew, according to Donkey Kong lore, which I didn't write. So yeah, that's how Diddy looks like he does. And don't confuse him with the Diddy. Every time I say Diddy Kong at school at the moment, and all the kids look at Diddy, they start laughing because of stuff that's going on in the press with a certain rapper, pop star. Don't get the two confused. Diddy Kong is Donkey Kong's nephew, okay?